So, as it turns out, a lot of people don't know that Visual Studio Code has a built in web browser. And the cool thing about this built in web browser is that it works directly with the AI in the editor, making it easy for you to just click on elements and pass them to the AI along with browser logs and a lot of other things. So, in this video, I sat down with the engineer who works on that feature. His name is Justin, and we walked through what this thing is. It's called the Simple Browser, how it works, and how he uses it for some of his workflows. Check it out. Hey, Justin, thanks for joining me. Let's start with just kind of showing us what is the Simple Browser in Visual Studio Code? How do we open it? How do we get started with it?
Yeah, the simple browser is a browser that's built in directly to VS Code. And once you open it up, you can interact with chat. And I'll go ahead and show you guys what that looks like. So I'll go ahead and do npm start here. And what this will do is actually open it directly into an external browser. But I actually don't want it in the external browser. I want it in the simple browser. All right, so go over here to simple browser show. And I'll go ahead and paste in the local host that React just opened up. And you can see here now I've got this beautiful Maple Market website here.
It is beautiful. You built that yourself?
No, I used AI on all of this. Copilot was really great. Didn't touch a single line of code in this.
Impressive, and no purple gradients.
So yeah, I mean, there are a couple different controls that we can see here with the simple browser. Obviously, the very classic browser controls with forward and back, refresh. But there's also this button that lets you open it up in an external browser. And that just opened it up in my Edge over here on my second screen. But we also have this cool floating toolbar down here. And what it actually does is you can see here, it says it will add an element to chat. It has a couple different buttons in it. This will collapse the overlay. So if you actually don't want to see it, you can collapse it. This will open up some configurations. And yeah, we'll go ahead and just kind of show off what this does. So I'll go ahead and hit start here. And what you'll see is I'm actually starting to go through and I'm kind of selecting different elements on this homepage. And it's really cool because I can click. And actually what it does is it adds the element that I just clicked on as HTML, as CSS, and as a screenshot.
So I also noticed, like as you were zooming around, Justin, that there's some detail in the little window that pops up. Specifically, like there's size and class names, which I find helpful. Often, I'm concerned with the width of things when I'm doing UI work. So, what all do we have in this little pop up window here?
This is actually just built in from Chrome DevTools, and it's really great because you can see exactly what type of element it is. You can see here it's an A, and then it's called like navlink, I guess. It has a specific width, a height. We can see the fonts, the padding, any accessibility stuff, whether it's keyboard focusable or not. But yeah, it's really great because it just can give you some really quick and dirty information. Maybe you need to see how much padding something has and how much you want to change it by. And it's something that's really great that you can quickly just scroll through and see if there's something you want to change.
So, Justin, I noticed there's an arrow next to that start button. What are the other options in that little selection menu?
There's actually another option where you can do continuous selection. And what this means is that as I click, it won't immediately cancel the selection. So I can click on a bunch of different elements here, all back to back, and it will just add them all. And then I'll go ahead and click done, and then
And I noticed that it's adding to the chat, it is adding, it looks like a text file and it is adding image files as well. So what's actually happening there?
so what we get added is we have HTML that gets added first. We also add any matched CSS that the DevTools finds, and it'll also add a bunch of the inherited CSS as well, since we're just getting pretty much everything that's involved with this element. And then the last thing is a screenshot. It adds a screenshot of the element that I just clicked on. So the agent can kind of see what exactly I'm working on from a visual standpoint, but also obviously it has all access to the entire code base and all the code that I just attached.
I find this super helpful because a lot of times I'm trying to describe to the chat what I want in the AI or what isn't working correctly. And I find it very difficult to describe in words what's happening visually. So maybe let's do just some simple demos of using the chat and simple browser to work with the UI.
Yeah, so I think one of the quick scenarios I want to show off is maybe I want to change this from welcome to Maple Market to Maple Market is the best. So I'll go ahead and click on this and you can see it's a header with called page title. and that gets added in. Once again, we have this h1. We know the class is called page title. Let's change this to Maple Market is the best. And what's actually happening here behind the scenes is obviously we give it the attached context, we give it the screenshot, and it'll actually search for that text. So whether it's finding the class name or it's finding the match CSS, it'll go through and search, find the file, and then make updates based on that. So you can see it here, it properly found where this happens right here in homepage.txt, and it made the change with my lowercase and everything.
And is that reflected immediately in the simple browser? Or I guess that would depend on the process that you have running locally, right? Like if your local process is refreshing, then it'll refresh here in the simple browser.
Exactly. It really depends. Right here, I'm using React. So I did write an npm start. So this has hot refresh, but sometimes your framework might not have that. So it really depends.
Okay, we can hover over elements to see some details about them. We can click on them to select them. And when we do that, we get a screenshot as well. What are some other use cases that we have here for using the simple browser with the chat? What are some workflows?
So I think one of the workflows that I really like using is maybe I'm really dealing with like a padding issue where I just want things to be a little smaller or spaced closer together. And one of the scenarios is that's really fantastic is I can click on this entire element. And obviously the thing that's attached is this entire toolbar. Maybe I want things to be a little closer together. Let's make it a little less spaced out and decrease the gap between navbar elements.
Now, I noticed in your prompt here that you're kind of non-specific because you don't need to be. You're saying let's make it a little less spaced. It though is not defined. You don't have to describe that because the HTML and CSS that was attached and the screenshot provide the context.
Exactly. And you can see here, it ended up doing it perfectly. Like now this is a lot less spaced out. And yeah, just the context that you're giving, obviously we included the image. This does look super, super complicated, but what ends up happening is I'm adding pretty much the entire div and it will just use that as context, search for it, and it knows exactly what I'm talking about.
All right, so we have this very visual sort of back and forth with the AI where you don't have to explain, sort of show over tell, which also speeds you up. What are some other ways that you use the simple browser, some other workflows?
Sometimes I'll run into an error. I'll go over here to the checkout page. I actually haven't implemented the checkout, but look, I got an error here. Yeah, so right here, I'll go ahead and attach logs. And you can see here in the console logs, it actually attached the logs from the browser and it includes the error message and everything here. And one of the workflows that's great here is I can actually be like, now I see this error, let's fix it. And it gets a bunch of context, at least on the error message. It knows where it happened. And the rest of these like links here are not that useful, but it knew exactly where this was happening. It ended up doing a search text for that error, found it, and ended up removing the error. And obviously right here, I was just throwing an error deliberately, but it was able to quickly kind of figure out what it was based on the error message that I attached.
That's quite useful because you don't have to copy and paste from the browser back into the chat, which if you use AI, you know, you do a lot of copying and pasting from other places. So that's very convenient. What about Justin, though, if I don't want it to add a screenshot or I don't want it to add HTML, how can I configure what the simple browser is actually sending to the chat?
So right here, we actually have this little gear icon where you can configure the attachments that are actually sent. So I'll go ahead and click on this. So I showed off earlier that you can attach CSS and images, but maybe we think that it's too much context or we don't want to send that much information. We can actually uncheck these. And as I go back over to the simple browser and I select another element, let's select this entire div here, you can see here, it didn't attach the image. And if we look, this is a lot simpler now. We know what type of content is attached, and this is the div associated with it.
Very nice. So I can get control over whether or not I want to have screenshots attached. And I should also point out an additional tip here that if you would like to not take a screenshot of the element, but you would like a screenshot of the whole app, you could also just click down in the chat on the paperclip icon there and just do attach screenshot. And that will attach a screenshot of the entire Visual Studio Code window. But because Simple Browser is the most prominent thing, this is a trick I use a lot to get just the context of the element, but also show the AI the entire application, because sometimes I want it to see the whole thing. So we've seen how Simple Browser can display the site, how we can select elements, add them to the chat. And one of the things I noticed, Justin, is that we're using GPT-4.1 here, which is why we're getting very fast answers. So I kind of like to know, just from your perspective, how does the Simple Browser perform with the different models? Do you prefer smaller models? Is there enough context here to use these faster models? As the person who works on Simple Browser, do you have recommendations?
I think personally, some of the smaller models actually perform quite well because you're already giving it so much direct context. Like I'm giving it exactly what the error is. You can see here exactly what this error is. Over here, I gave it exactly which div that I wanted to work on. So all it really has to do is go through, do a search for that text exactly, and it can find exactly where you want to go. So realistically, a lot of these smaller models perform really well. They also perform quite quickly. You can see throughout the entire demo, I was using 4.1, and it ended up having no issues finding exactly where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do.
Right. And I have the exact same experience with the smaller models, or what we call the included ones, is that if you have enough context, they work really, really well. And so in this case, I think a lot of times you could save premium requests when using Simple Browser by using some of these smaller models. Justin, are there any plans that you can share with us in terms of where Simple Browser is going as a feature?
So actually, the attached logs feature actually isn't in Insiders yet or in Sable yet either, but it's something that will be shipping very, very, very soon. In addition to that, obviously the simple browser is wasn't intended to be something that worked with chat, but it's evolved so much that we wanted to maybe add a couple things just to help out in terms of quality of life, including zooming and zooming in and out. So one thing that you'll notice actually is the zoom is tied to the browser. So unfortunately, as I zoom in, the simple browser will also zoom in and it will also zoom out. But that is just one of the issues that we're going to try to take care of. Additionally, working in new windows. At the moment, the simple browser will only work super well with chat when it's in the same window, but we want to make it kind of like its own standalone browser, just like Edge or just like Firefox or Chrome or anything like that, but with the chat integration just in the bottom right corner.
Well, it's an exciting feature. And for those who want to check it out today, I think just recap one more time. It's built into Visual Studio Code. There's no extension. Just open a command palette with F1 or Command or Control Shift P and look for Simple Browser, and then paste in the URL of your application, and you can start cooking with the agent.